Hi everyone, this is Professor Ray, and in this lecture I'm going to talk about writing a thesis statement. So the first question you may be asking yourself is, what is a thesis statement? And I tell you that at the outset of this handout, and it's something that I think is worth repeating, which is this sentence here. A thesis statement is a sentence or sentences that expresses the main ideas or idea of your essay, and it often answers a prompt or thesis question. So really, in a nutshell, the thesis statement is the main idea of your essay, okay? And we'll talk more about that as we get through this handout and look at sample thesis statements, okay? All right, something else that it does is it offers your reader a quick guide to the content of your paper, what you're going to discuss in your paper. So I like to use the analogy of a map, using a map to get to a place. So let's say you and your friends are going to San Francisco for the weekend, and you show your friends on Google Maps, because nobody uses a paper map anymore. Here's San Francisco, but we're going to have to go to A, B, and C to get here. And, this is our route. This is our map. Well, that's kind of what a thesis statement is. You're telling your reader in usually one sentence what you're going to prove, what you're going to show, what you're going to explain in that essay. Okay, so keep that in mind. And also keep in mind the type of writing assignment you're being asked to complete by your professor. So let's say your professor is asking you to write a comparison contrast essay. You would want a thesis statement that addresses a comparison contrast essay assignment. And the same would go for argumentation, narration, and so on, okay? All right, let's move on. We're gonna talk about general thesis statement tips. And this portion of the handout will be helpful in that it relates to another posting I made about a thesis statement, which is Gene Wyrick's chapter on writing a thesis statement. And some of this information may also come up on your quiz. So again, make sure you follow along, but also annotate and read for a deeper understanding, okay? So what is the first general thesis statement tip? Well, the first one is a thesis statement consists of two parts. You always have your topic plus your assertion, your explanation, your analysis, and so on, okay? So it's always two parts, the topic and what you're trying to prove, show, explain, and that would depend on the assignment, all right? Number two, a thesis statement is not merely a fact. So keep this in mind. I have to say this is the number one issue I see in student writing is their thesis statement is just a fact. It's what we call a so what statement, okay? The sample example thesis statement says the result of the Civil War was freedom for slaves. Well, yes, this is a historical fact. We all know this. So what? You're not telling me anything new. However, if you look at this better version, although the Civil War helped free African Americans, many are still affected by systematic oppression. So this is something that is interesting and that a writer could prove in an essay through logical reasoning, through research, through a combination of both. But it's a provable idea that can be supported by evidence, okay? So keep that in mind. Thesis statement should not be a fact. It should be an interesting and provable idea, okay? All right, number three, a thesis statement should not be too narrow or personal, okay? And what I mean by this is we all have opinions and we have preferences, biases. You don't want that personal feeling to spill into your writing, at least this kind of writing, the college essay, because you want to keep a more objective, reader-friendly tone, okay? And you have to remember the reader is not you. The reader is not inside of your head. So for example, if you look at this thesis statement, Breaking Bad is the best show ever, right? Some of your readership may not think Breaking Bad is a good television show. Maybe they haven't seen it, right? So you're really, making a broad assertion there, but also, bringing in, a preference of yours. It also, you never want to have strong punctuation. I guess this is the strongest form of punctuation, that exclamation point, because again, that's just kind of throwing, you know, emotion in your reader's face, and they're just like, whoa, okay, well, we know that person likes Breaking Bad, but come on, I don't know what it is, or I don't think so. So avoid those type of statements that are too personal, too narrow. Instead, again, turn it into some kind of provable idea. For example, this one. A close examination of Breaking Bad reveals the severe consequences of drug addiction in America. So this is something that's provable and would be interesting to the reader. And you wouldn't have to explain, you know, all of the episodes of Breaking Bad. You could just analyze one episode and look at segments that really support that idea of the severe consequences that come from drug use. Okay. All right, number 4, in some kinds of writing, thesis statement is not the most important part. And I would say really just 2 genres of writing, and that would be narration and description. So in these type of papers, the emphasis is really on describing or telling a story. So your thesis statement, you may not have a thesis statement that comes at the end of an introductory paragraph. You may just begin by narrating the first part of the story in paragraph 1, second part in paragraph 2, and so on. We will not cover narration or descriptive writing in this class. It will be other genres. So in your case, yes, the thesis statement is the most important. I always say the thesis statement is the most important sentence in the paper because it lays that map. It provides that map for your reader. Okay. All right. Number 5, a thesis statement is a very specific statement, and this means it should tell the reader exactly what you're going to cover in your paper. You don't want to leave your reader guessing. And you also want to provide a statement that sets up the analysis or the argument so that you can bring in evidence to prove it. Okay. All right, number 6, generally a thesis statement appears at the end of the first paragraph of the essay, which is an introductory paragraph. And I would say for I'm not good with percentages, but I would say for 90%, 99, let's just say 99% of college English papers, you're going to end your introductory paragraph with your thesis. Now, depends on the length of the assignment. So for example, if you have a really long paper, let's say an 8 to 10 page research paper or a 10 to 15 page research paper, you might have 2 or more paragraphs for your introduction. In that case, your thesis would come at the end of the last paragraph in that series. So let's say you wrote a long research paper and you have 2 paragraphs for your introduction. Your thesis would come at the end of the second paragraph because from that point on, you would prove that main idea. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Number 7, I mentioned already, you could think of your thesis as a map or a guide for your reader. And it also keeps you accountable, keeps the writer accountable as well. So as you're writing that paper, as you're presenting evidence, your own ideas, you're always going back to that thesis statement to make sure you're supporting that idea. Okay. And then the last one is number 8. It is okay to revise your thesis statement during the revision process. And I'm sure in this week's readings, you came across the working thesis statement. And a working thesis statement is basically means it can change. A working thesis, a working draft, a working project, that means it's still evolving. So during the drafting and revision process, part of the writing process, excuse me, you can change that thesis. But once you finalize that draft, once you polish that draft, finalize it, that should be your final thesis statement, okay? All right, let's quickly go over the different, really I think 3 main kinds of thesis statements, and I hope this will give you a better idea of, you know, having the topic and the second part, which is again your analysis, your argument, and so on, your assertion, I think I said earlier. Okay, the analytical thesis statement. For an English 103 class, which is critical thinking, you may be asked to analyze an issue. So you could write an analytical thesis statement. But For the most part, the essays you write in a college English course are going to be argumentative, meaning you're formulating or coming up with some kind of claim and you're proving it with facts and research and your own opinion and so on. So what is an analytical essay? It talks about, well, what you're analyzing, the parts of your analysis, and the order in which you will be presenting your analysis. Okay, so here's an example of an analytical thesis statement. An analysis of barn owl flight behavior reveals two kinds of flight patterns: patterns related to hunting prey and patterns related to courtship. So the first thing you notice is, well, is there a topic here? Yes. Okay, the topic is barn owl flight behavior. The second part is an analysis of two kinds of flight patterns. How many parts is the analysis? Well, it's two parts because the writer is going to analyze patterns related to hunting prey and patterns related to courtship. Okay, so in this paper, the writer would be focusing on those two areas. Okay, so something to keep in mind. Now, questions to ask yourself when you're writing an analytical thesis statement. What did I analyze? What did I discover in my analysis? How could I categorize my discoveries? And in what order should I present my discoveries? So this is maybe at the pre-writing / drafting stage when you're really putting those ideas together. Now, even though I said you may not write an analytical essay in English, you could come across this kind of essay in another class. Okay, so let's say I see the word behaviors here, right? Let's say you're taking psychology and you're analyzing behaviors in young mothers or something. In that case, this would be the kind of thesis statement for that paper. Okay. All right. Now the next type of essay, I'm sorry, not essay. The type of thesis statement is the expository essay. I'm sorry, the expository thesis statement, or the explanatory thesis statement. And this is something you will come across in your English courses. So what is an expository thesis? So let me just read this definition. It's kind of important. In an expository paper, you're explaining something to your audience. An expository thesis, you've also heard this maybe referred to as an exposition. So an expository thesis statement will tell your audience, one, what you're going to explain to them, two, the categories you are using to organize your explanation, or three, the order in which you will be presenting your categories. Okay, so let's look at a expository thesis, and it reads, the lifestyles of barn owls include hunting for insects and animals, building nests, and raising their young. All right, so you're going to explain to your reader, all right, the topic of barn owls. So remember, we always need that topic plus the explanation, the assertion, and so on. So the lifestyle of barn owls, and you're going to explain how they hunt for animals, how they build nests, and how they raise their young. So this would be the three categories you're going to explain in relation to the lifestyle of barn owls. Okay. All right, let's go on to, oh, and just a quick thing again, going back to the expository thesis or the explanatory. You want to ask yourself before you start writing, again at the pre-writing stage, drafting stage, what am I trying to explain? How can I categorize my explanations into different parts? And in what order should I present the different parts of my explanation? And the last one, in what order means your paragraphs. Are you going to start with the most important idea, or the least important idea lead up to the most important idea? Maybe all of the ideas hold equal weight, in which case you can just present them any way, in any order you want, and so on. But something to think about, okay? All right, the last one, and I would say the most important one in regards to this class, is the argumentative thesis statement. Now, why do I say important? Because you're going to write at least one argumentative essay, and your research paper is going to be an argumentative essay. So something to keep in mind. So an argumentative paper, in an argumentative paper, I'm reading here, you are making a claim about a topic and justifying this claim with reasons and evidence, all right? And this claim could be an opinion, a policy proposal, an evaluation, a cause-effect statement, and so on. Again, you would want to look at the prompt provided by your instructor to determine what kind of argumentative thesis statement to write, okay? Now, this is important. I want to read this as well. However, this claim or this argument must be a statement that people could possibly disagree with, because the goal of your paper is to convince, this is very important, guys, with argumentation, to convince your audience that your claim is true based on your presentation of your reasons and evidence, okay? And yes, you're going to have audience members or readers who disagree with you, or you have to assume this is true, okay? Now, technically, it will be me reading your paper. If we do peer editing, it may be a peer or two, but you have to almost pretend that you have different opinions out there in your audience, and that your thesis, your argumentative thesis, as well as the paper that supports that thesis, is reader friendly. Doesn't mean that that every audience member has to agree with you, but they at least have they should at least consider what you have to say, and that's the art of argumentation. Okay, going back to, remember the tips earlier, don't be too personal or too narrow. This is different. Okay, yes, you should not be too personal or too narrow in your thesis statement, but you can write on a topic that's personal or important to you. But again, always keeping in mind that audience. Are they going to consider what you have to say? And that's what is meant here. Okay, now the last one here, an argumentative thesis statement will tell your audience your claim or assertion, okay? The evidence you're going to use to support the assertion or claim, and the order in which you're going to present the reasons and evidence. Now, this last part, we'll look more at research paper thesis statements later, because the research paper is a longer paper, and you can include what is called a little, like a mini map in your thesis statement that says, I'm going to talk about A, B, and C, but it's not necessarily required. So we'll talk a little bit about that later, okay? Let's look at this example of an argumentative thesis statement. So the same topic as before, barn owls. So barn owl nests should not be eliminated from barns because barn owls help farmers by eliminating insects and rodent pests. And I would say you could, actually the word eliminated is repeated twice. I would probably, as a writer, probably change eliminated to something else, maybe by exterminating. Right? So you have different words there. You don't sound as if you're repeating yourself. So barn owl nests should be eliminated from barns because barn owls help farmers by exterminating insect and rodent pests. Okay, so the first thing you want to notice is this phrase here: should not, or just I said should not be, but should not, which is a modal, the negative form, and this is really sets that argumentative tone because you're making a strong recommendation. You don't want to say must not. I guess you could say must not, but should is a little more reader friendly. It's a little more polite, not as strong. But that is what makes this an argumentative thesis statement. This is what's saying I'm making a claim on this topic. I think barn owls should not be killed, should not be eliminated. Or you could argue the other. Barn owls should be eliminated because they, I don't know, spread disease within animals or something. So you could go either way, but should not, must. This is language that really shows some kind of claim or strong assertion, okay? And then just lastly here, a reader who encountered this thesis statement would be expected to, would expect the writer to give evidence on how barn owls help the farmers, how by, eating insects and rodents and so on, okay? And questions to ask yourself in the pre-writing, drafting stage: what is my claim or assertion? What are the reasons I have to support my claim or assertion? In what order should I present my reasons? And again, here, this is really talking about how you're going to structure your essay, your body paragraphs, okay? In which order, all right? All right, I'm going to stop here, and in the second video, part 2 of writing a thesis statement, we're going to look at the thesis statement checklist, and we're also going to revise and edit some thesis statements that are not, they don't fit the criteria. They don't pass the thesis checklist. Don't pass the thesis checklist. So anyway, all right, thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video.